Hey, what's up guys, and welcome to my YouTube channel. Here we'll be uploading all sorts of scary content, but I wanted to start off with Reddit. Whether you're a fan of Reddit typically or not, this video is worth a watch, as I'm going to be telling some of the weirdest, scariest stories I could find on here. So, welcome. Sit back, relax, and let's get into the first story. The first time I saw the Shadow Man. I'm a 39-year-old male, living in Michigan. This is the story of the first and last time I had sleep paralysis. I had dated someone in the past who dealt with sleep paralysis and night terrors, so I was aware of what it entailed. But until experiencing it for yourself, you can never really understand the dread that overtakes you. It was like a lucid dream. In fact, for a long time afterwards, I debated if it was a real event or not. It was the middle of the night. I had been asleep, but now was laying kind of propped up in bed on an angle, with pillows behind my back. I am a grown man, but I still sleep with a nightlight. I had a Himalayan salt rock lamp on my nightstand, putting off a warm orange glow. As my senses came about, I realized that even though I was sitting up a bit, I had zero motor function of my body. I was paralyzed from head to toe. This alone was a terrifying notion, as someone who has been blessed with relatively good health through the years. Not being able to move was shocking to say the least. Upon this realization, I began to take stock of my surroundings, and as I scanned the room, I saw him. My bedroom is a part of an addition to my home. Therefore, it is a rather oblong shape. My bed was pushed into the corner on one side of the room. On the other side, out of reach from the glowing nightlight, stood a shadow man. I would describe him the same as many others I had described shadow people. He was nothing more than a silhouette, but he was more black than all the darkness surrounding him. He stood tall with no features at all, but somehow I could feel his non-existent eyes fixated on me. Instant terror washed over me. I could sense his malice and hostility. It felt like he wanted to hurt me. My body went into fight-or-flight mode, and my adrenaline surged, but there was no moving. I remember trying to will my arms to function, but it was as if they were 20,000 pounds. I could not budge them. My consciousness was my only tool. I wanted to scream at the entity. I kept trying to yell, "This is a house of God. You are not welcome here." But it was as if my voice was caught in my throat. Trying to urge the words from my mouth was met with defeat over and over again. Then, as suddenly as it had begun, it was over. Like a spell had been lifted. I gasped in a huge breath. My body seemed to tense, hugged the bed's mattress. I could move again. I sat up all the way, and my head darted around, frantically looking for the shadow figure. It was gone, but it didn't disappear. It didn't dissolve into thin air. It merely was there 1 second and not there the next. My heart was beating rapidly, and I took in very deep breaths. I laid back in bed and tried to calm myself. That was a terrifying dream, I thought, but then again, was it? It didn't feel like I had been dreaming. My dreams are usually pretty bizarre. They're never in a typical setting from my life, like a bedroom, and it didn't feel like I had waken up from sleep. You know how you typically have that feeling coming from dreamland to the waking world. That sense of clarity that you're back in reality. I didn't have that at all. I didn't wake up and open my eyes. It was just as if the event had finished and now I was laying in my bed alone. It was the oddest feeling and stuck with me for weeks after. Eventually I decided it was not a dream at all. It just felt too real, and I had to wonder if the warm glow from my salt lamp was the only thing that night that kept the shadows at bay. Haunting at inn in Charleston, South Carolina. Me and my fiance traveled to Charleston, South Carolina to celebrate my birthday. We found an old B&B that was built in the 1840s. I called and asked for the room with the flower wallpaper. It was incredibly beautiful. 15-foot ceilings, huge fireplace, balcony filled with antiques. We were in love. Friday night, we go out to dinner and immediately fall asleep when we got back. We were exhausted. It's rare for me to wake up in the middle of the night, but I woke up at 1 a.m. to my fiancé grunting in his sleep. I went back to bed and had the most vivid dream of a woman floating super fast over to the end of the bed from a door I had closed to the sitting room on the left-hand side. She was looking down at me, staring directly at me. In the dream, everything in the room was exactly how it was in real life. The door to the sitting room was closed. My luggage was in the same spot. I was even in the same position when sleeping. I immediately awoke and jolted up and felt this thickness in the air, and the most bone-chilling feeling, like I was being watched. I can always tell when I'm being watched in my sleep and wake up. I do it to my fiancé all the time when he's looking at me while I'm asleep. It was just after 3 a.m., cliché. I woke my fiancé up and we stayed awake for the rest of the night. The next day, we walked downstairs for breakfast and I told one of the workers about the experience. She asked me not to mention that in the review and told me she is a devout Christian who doesn't believe in ghosts. She said the housekeeper has lots of stories about our room in particular. We parted ways and a guest walks in and the first words out of his mouth are, "This place is damn haunted." My fiancé and I asked what he experienced, and he described how his bathroom door was swinging open all night, even after he'd shut it all the way. He told us he was in room 202, and we didn't know where that was. There were lots of rooms. Fast forward to later in the day, we used our back door to our room, and I look up and see the room connected to ours was 202. That's when I Google our B&B and the word haunted. Lots of articles started popping up, including an infamous story of a man awakening to a woman staring down at him at the end of the bed, and you guessed it, our same room. That's when my fiancé and I were starting to get very scared. LOL. We are babies and have never experienced something like that.
Saturday was fine. We came home from lunch, and I see that there is what looks like a used washcloth in the bathroom on the counter. I asked if my fiancé had used it, and he says no. I did not use that one earlier. I hold it up, and there is a handprint, clear as day, imprinted in it. We literally examined it for 5 minutes, complexed at how a handprint could even hold on a damn hand towel. It was bizarre, to say the least. That was when I said something about us not wanting to cause any harm. We respect whoever is here with us, and they don't have permission to follow us. Nothing else happened that night or earlier today. We just got home and are retelling the events of those weekends, scared shitless. LOL.
My high school sweetheart, who died her senior year, is now my neighbor. I never imagined I'd find myself back in my old hometown. Life has a way of circling back, of dragging you to places you thought you had escaped. We moved here for the quiet life, for our daughter to grow up in a safe neighborhood, but there are ghosts here, shadows of the past that refuse to fade. The house next door had been empty for years, when a moving truck appeared. I didn't think much of it. People come and go, life moves on. But then I saw her. Alyssa. The girl who had a huge crush on me in high school. The girl who had died in a car accident during her senior year. It couldn't be her. Of course, this woman had a different name and hair color, but those eyes. I'd never forget those eyes. During the day, she was normal, friendly even. She introduced herself as Lisa, a pleasant smile never leaving her face. But at night, everything changed. I'd wake up in the middle of the night, feeling uneasy, peering through the blinds. I'd see her standing in the window, staring directly at our house, her eyes fixated on my bedroom. I tried to tell my wife, Sarah. She laughed it off at first, calling it an overreactive imagination. "You're just stressed," she said. But as the nights went on, I saw Alyssa. No, Lisa, more often. She never moved, never blinked, just stared with those dead, unblinking eyes. I went to the police, but they thought I was crazy. "Your neighbor hasn't done anything wrong," they said. "We can't just arrest someone for looking out their window." I even tried to confront her, to ask why she was watching us, but she'd just smile, that same empty smile, and deny everything. One night, I woke to a sound, a creaking floorboard, the kind that groans under the weight of something, or someone. I reached over to wake Sarah, but she wasn't there. Panic set in as I rushed downstairs. The living room was empty, but the front door was open, slightly ajar. I stepped outside, the cool night air biting my skin. And there she was. Lisa was standing at the edge of our yard, still as a statue. Sarah was beside her, eyes wide and vacant.
as if she was in a trance. I shouted her name, but she didn't respond. Lisa turned her head slowly, her eyes locking onto mine, and she whispered something to Sarah. My wife turned, walking back towards the house, her movements stiff and unnatural. "Sarah, what are you doing?" I called out, my voice trembling. She didn't answer, just walked past me and into the house. I followed her, heart pounding in my chest. She went upstairs, back to our bedroom, and lay down as if nothing had happened. I stood there, helpless, as Lisa's voice echoed in my mind. "She belongs to me now," it whispered, cold and final. The next morning, Sarah remembered nothing. She laughed off my concern, but her eyes, something was different. Every night the staring continued, but now Sarah would join her at the window. They'd stand there side by side, two shadows against the moonlight. I was alone in my own home, trapped in a nightmare no one else could see. And then one night, Sarah didn't come back inside. I searched for her, calling her name until my throat was raw, but she was gone. The police found no trace, and I was left with nothing but the image of her and Lisa side by side, staring into the darkness. Now I sit by the window every night waiting, watching, hoping that somehow this nightmare will end, but deep down I know the truth. Alyssa, Lisa, whatever her name is, has taken everything from me, and I'm next. I caused a haunting. My birthday is October 21st. I'm also absolutely obsessed with horror/Halloween things. This was almost 11 years ago, will be this October, and I've spent a lot of time trying to forget it, so it's foggy, but the details are close enough. So for every birthday, for as long as I can remember, I've done a Halloween theme. When I was younger, I'd have a sleepover party, and we would watch scary movies. For my 13th birthday, we of course did the same thing. We ended up watching a few movies that night, but the main one we were doing was The Exorcism of Emily Rose. A quick detail, my aunt was living with us at this time. The entire night she was saying some weird things. I don't even remember what, but things like, doing stuff like this is just asking for bad attention. But most of the night was uneventful. Around 1 a.m. we started the Exorcism movie. During a high-tension part, for those that have seen it, it would be the part where she leaves her dorm and looks outside as if she's walking through the hallway. My dog, who was in a different room, starts howling. He never in his life howled before or after that night. A little later on, my aunt came upstairs. She didn't say much, but stayed a while. When it got closer to the end, another high-tension part, I remember half a barn and the demons naming themselves. My aunt, without saying a word, jumps up, and in the exact second her feet hit the ground, our power went out. But only in the living room and my bedroom. This wasn't even too alarming, because it did that pretty often, but usually not at night. I only know my bedroom went out, because my alarm clock was messed up. My aunt flipped the breaker and everything was fine. We didn't finish the movie though. We put on SpongeBob and all fell asleep. The next day, 2 of my friends left really early. We were gonna go to the lake, but they left before we had a chance to really talk about it. My best friend stayed all weekend. Nothing really happened, but the house felt heavy all that day. About 3 weeks went by, and nothing happened. Eventually, though, I started having horrible dreams, especially about one thing. It was a woman, very tall in a semi-simple dress. I could see lines and features, but it was just shadow, like a 3D type shadow. I would dream things like running through a forest or falling down a hill, and she would always be watching me. I wake up covered in scratches, but clearly self-inflicted scratches. They would be deeper every night. We tried everything. Cutting my nails every night to keep as short as possible, taping gloves on my hands, Mom sleeping with me. She worked 12 hours, 6 days a week, so she could not stay awake and watch me, but she tried. Eventually, getting to a point where they were on my neck and the school was asking questions, where even CPS had to come out to our house and ask me if I was safe. My mom was with me, and we told them the truth about my dreams. They put me into therapy. This went on for about 8 months. My brother had really bad nightmares too, but nothing specific, but really often. Eventually, we were up and moved.
Like, literally. I went to bed one night like normal, and when I woke up, my mom had all mine and my brother's stuff packed. We went to my grandma's after school, and we never went back to that house. And my mom moved in a few weeks later. It took about 2 months to get into a new house. The dream stopped instantly, and the scratches cleared up within a few weeks, and I haven't had issues since. Expect to have horrible insomnia and anxiety that started around that time. We did have one more visit with the CPS after moving, and I did a few more months of therapy. I think they all checked it up to extreme anxiety, except we were never able to find a cause. My husband and I recently moved to an apartment that is just a few blocks away from that house. Within 3 weeks of moving in, I started scratching myself, although I didn't dream about her at all. We were on a month-to-month lease, so we only spent 2 months there and then moved out. I did bring it up to my mom last week, and she told me that the reason she moved us to my grandma's like she did was because she was sitting in the living room after putting us to bed. Like 10 minutes after we went to sleep, she would lay in both of our rooms till she was absolutely awake. She watched a tall, shadow-like woman walk to the hall, stop, and looked into my brother's room, then went into mine. My mom went after it. When she got to my room, she heard, "You've already lost her." She turned on all the lights and started packing. It's kind of a boring ending, but I've been questioning it a lot lately. Could this have just been anxiety, or was it real? I've never experienced anything else I would consider supernatural. Add. I went and reread my post looking for grammar errors or anything, and as I was reading, I realized I haven't even celebrated my birthday since that year. I don't know if that's relevant, but I wanted to put it in. And alright, that's going to wrap up this Reddit Stories video and the first video on this channel. Let me know if you guys enjoyed in the comments below, and let me know if you guys want me to do different topics, maybe more niche like paranormal, or more true stories, or maybe some more far-fetched ones. And consider subscribing. My goal is to get this channel to 10,000 subscribers before the end of the year, and any help towards that goal would be greatly appreciated. So yeah, thank you for taking the time to watch this, and I'll see you in the next one. See ya.